Hello Dino Peeps, what an emotional roller coaster ride. First, I'm testing the new breeding mechanics for you in Ark Survival Ascended, and on my second attempt I managed to transfer the mutation stack, but then my game crashes and rerolls to a point where my attempt was only partially set up. However, I was sure that I saw what I saw, so I decided to make my video. Comments from viewers asked if it could have been another mutation, and I'm uncertain. I don't know if I checked the mutation counter, so I revised my video after being unable to reproduce it. However, later I received messages from people who have tested it themselves and were able to replicate it. So I tested once again, and this time not with dodos, as they always fell under the mesh for me, and I did not want to wait for a fix. Like one of my viewers, I used direwolves, and well, you can probably guess what happened. So here's my experimental setup. First, I spawn level 1 wolves into the game using spawn exact dino, and I mate them repeatedly with each other until I have enough females. And then I wait for a level 3 baby to be born, ensuring that it's a mutated baby because it has 2 levels more than the parent creatures. This took about 2 hours, despite boosted rates, so much for being lucky. But eventually it happens, and this baby is born with a mutation in stamina. That sets the foundation. I would have preferred to wait for more mutations on this stat, but that would have taken even longer, so I settled for the single stat mutation, and I can still prove it to you, as you will see. Next, I spawn a wolf with 100 points in all stats, but no mutations, and this can also easily be done with using spawn exact dino. And then I restart the game because spawn exact dino sometimes has the issue of the stats only being correct after a restart or after placing them into cryopods, and since we don't have cryopods, a restart was necessary. I added 100 points to all stats to make it easier to see which of the stats the following babies inherit. And with this pairing, I raised a total of 5 babies. And here I already got the evidence I needed. 3 inherited the father's stat and added the 2 mutation points on top. 2 did not. And 1 female even got an additional mutation. And to be completely sure, I then swapped the mother with the offspring to see how it behaves with 2 mutations. And again, I got creatures with both mutations on the father's high stats. Sometimes just 1, sometimes none. The complete mutation counter still behaves the same as before in old Ark, so it only shows if the parents had mutations and possible new ones. This is good to know because it confirms that the mutations on the high stats are not new mutations, but the same ones as before. With a small experiment, I was able to demonstrate that mutation stacks can be inherited individually, even if there are multiple mutations. They behave like additional stats. My gut feeling would say that there is a 50% chance of getting the stack, but if they use the same mechanics as the stat inheritance, it's probably more like a 55% chance of getting the larger stack. Whether there are other limitations, we don't know for now. But we know that this is the breeding method, how it works. Because the old mutation counter is still there, I suspect it determines the limitations, just like the old breeding system. So mutation stacking is still important, as always, to avoid getting over 20 mutations on both parents. However, the starting stat is not important, just as I mentioned in the previous video. But what is now the difference in breeding in Ark Survival Ascended? In Ark Survival Evolved, when a mutation occurred, it simply increased the base stat. You could only tell that a mutation happened by checking the mutation counter, which had to be higher than the combined mutation counters of the parents. The game itself didn't keep track on how many mutations were in each stat, making it difficult to trace where mutation had landed. Calculators in apps could only provide educated guesses by comparing the parent stats. Additionally, you had to ensure that your initial stat had either an even or odd level count, because otherwise you couldn't reach the maximum levelable cap of 254 or 255. Ultimately, it was crucial to find a good, high initial stat before you could even start mutating. In the worst case, this could take weeks. All of these preparations, which you would have needed to be aware of in early game, are now eliminated. You can jump right into mutating and get started. But now onto the frustrating part. In the game, without mods, there is currently no integrated method to display mutations unless you have defeated the Overseer Alpha. However, I know that Ark Smart Breeding is working hard to support ASA, and most creatures still work in Ark Smart Breeding. But when balancing is added, things will likely change. We will also look into transferring our incubator calculator once we have all the data available. But at least now we know how it's working. As I mentioned, a breeding tutorial will come when I have more data, and also when I have played the game a little bit more to gain more insights into the tips and tricks that would be helpful for breeding. Thanks for watching, and if you discover any more breeding related things, feel free to let me know in the comments. If you want to see my previous video in which I explain everything, then click this link.